Just so you know, I watch the feed. Thank you for all your comments. And I've been watching a lot of questions come through. Today I'm going to answer the top 5 questions I've been getting on my channel. So there's no better feeling knowing that when you wake up in the morning to go play golf, so that you're going to play well. There's no better feeling of hitting good golf shots down the fairway. So my mission today is to help as many people as possible wake up every day feeling good that they're going to go out there and play great because of the single plane swing. Hey, welcome to today's content. I'm in studio. I thought today would be a great time to kind of answer some of the questions that I commonly get about the single plane swing. Let's go through the first one I've been getting quite often, which is about rotation. And you know, there's a lot of comments about, well, if you understand Mo Norman's swing and the single plane swing, people talk about less face rotation. I think it's a good thing to talk about face rotation because there is an ideal path and position of the golf club as it comes into impact. So let's get clear on this. Is that there's an ideal way that the club enters the golf ball. So what you want is the club face coming in. You want it to squarely hit the golf ball and then separate squarely, reducing, number one, rotation of the golf ball, side spin, and reducing rotation of the face. In other words, you don't want the face having too much rotation because it doesn't have enough time to square up. But there is an ideal position of the club face coming into impact. Now, a lot of people think, well, that the single plane swing has less face rotation. The single plane swing has ideal face rotation, but here's what has less rotation. You, the single plane golfer. Let's explain that. So keep in mind that the golf ball has no idea who's hitting it. It only knows the physics and dimensions of the golf club and the speed of the golf club coming in there, striking it. So how we use our body to move the golf club is really the benefit of the single plane swing. And one of those things is about rotation. Now, I want to talk about lead arm rotation and trail hand rotation. But here's the real point about rotational discussions is that we can't just talk about rotation. This is, if you look at the content that I put on my channel and you look at the single plane swing and what we do at Graves Golf, we have a model golf swing, the single plane swing of Mo Norman. That's our model. But it's more than just the grip. It's more than just non-rotation. It's all the metrics of the model work together to produce less movement of the body, to produce ideal club movement. Now I say it that way because, and this is just human nature, we try to figure out that one thing that that simplifies the golf swing. Matter of fact, I was at a school last week and one of my students was doing a demonstration and he was hitting golf balls. And I like when my students do demonstrations because I can then teach with my student explaining what he's doing and what's going on. And one of the students says, well, he has big grips. Do you recommend big grips? And I'm like, big grips are okay. But the big grips are not what are creating the single plane swing. The single plane swing is a position of the body that allows the big grips to be a benefit. But it's not the big grips. Single length clubs. People say, well, should I use single length clubs? Single length clubs might and might not work for you, but that's not what's producing the correct movement of the club. See what I'm saying? So my point is that we're all looking for that one secret when the secret is right here. It's how you move the body. So let's just talk about rotations. If I want this club to move in an ideal fashion with the ideal position of the club shaft and face into the ball to produce perfectly straight spin, optimizing speed. So I want this club to move perfectly. What do you do with the body? Let's go into that. The first thing, and probably this is primary to me, is tilt of the body. Now I say tilt, and why do I talk about tilt first? Because tilt is primary to rotation. In other words, you can rotate this hand, but if I tilt, my hand rotation is different. If I want to rotate this arm, that's different than if I tilt. It rotates the same amount, but it changes the range it moves. See that? So like, look, if I'm in this tilt, if I'm standing straight up and down, my arm can rotate this far. If I tilt, my arm can only rotate that far. See that? So the tilt of my body is dictating, because it changes the position of my shoulders, it's dictating my range of motion. Tilt is what I call, it's a reducer of motion. Tilt, it creates limitations in the body. So let's go into that, because this is the primary difference between, other than what I'm going to talk about shaft alignment, the single plane swing and a conventional swing, is the model is based on the positions of the body. The positions of the body help you optimize the club movement. That's a very important statement as I teach you this. Rotation. Let's go into the hand rotation. So because of tilt, when a body's tilted, people ask, well, how much are you reducing rotation? I'm not reducing rotation of the face. I have ideal club movement. What I am reducing is the rotation of my trail hand to get there. I'm reducing the amount of rotation of the lead hand to get there. So yes, my body has less rotation to it to produce the same ideal movement of the club. So in other words, I can be more consistent because if I have zeroed out the rotation of the trail hand, and how am I doing that? Here's how it's done. In the single plane swing, we have side bend, 15 degrees at address, 16 degrees at address. So when I set up, notice because of side bend, my trail hand's in a rotation. That allows my trail hand now to go back as I rotate my body and then back down as I rotate. And this hand is moving non-rotationally, so I'm not ever doing this to the golf club. Now there's that non-rotational movement back and down, so it eliminates because of my tilt. Look, if I come out of tilt, this hand rotates. So I'm basically keeping the body in a tilt to allow this hand to work in a straight line. Now you saw me demonstrate a second ago that because of that same tilt, it's creating a range of motion of this arm as well. I only have so much range in this arm now because of my tilt. So now I can only go so far with this hand. So this arm then goes back and then it squares up as well because of the tilt of my body. So yes, I'm reducing rotation of my body, my arms, and my hands to produce the ideal movement of the club. So that's the answer to the rotation question. But let's go one step further, because the next question I get is about the rotation of the release. Now this is an interesting conversation because what you see from that camera is that when you see that, you would say, well, Todd, look, the club is rotating over, right? The face is rotating over. But my hand this is extension of the arm, okay? This is rotation of the arm. Okay, that's rotation, that's extension. If I skip a rock, I extend. This would be a rotation of the arm. I'm not rotating my trail arm, I'm extending it. But the other thing that's happening too is when my body is tilted, it's also allowing the arm to extend, but my body's also rotating. So you can't, for example, if my body stops rotating, the arm rolls. See that? If my body rotates, I can extend without the rotation. My point is that I have to have all elements, rotation, bend, side bend of my body correct to get these elements correct. So from my perspective, and what you see happening is an extension of the arm and not a rolling of the forearm. So then the club squares, non-rotationally skipping a rock, and it continues to skip the rock, and you're not seeing a rolling of the hand. One way you can see that, by the way, is the club face will be back to the plane and never closed. All right, so that's another thing you'll see when you get the proper movement extension of the trail hand. Now, that's kind of the rotational thing. The next question I always get, and that was a number of questions there about rotation. The next question I often get is the trail foot on the ground, number one, reducing speed, or some of you have mentioned that it may hurt your back. Let's talk about this because I do not want to limit rotation. I'm limiting the movement your body can move, but I still want rotation. Watch this. And you've seen me talk about this a dozen times on my channel, but let's go through this because the lead knee, and by the way, if you're having stress in your back, check your foot position too. Don't just, you got to be smart about this. Look at my feet. They're both somewhat rotated. The lead one has more rotation than the trail foot. But this allows this knee, the foot rotation allows this knee to be in a stable flex position. That's a very important, that's a very much a stress reducer of my back. This leg needs to take the stress off the back. See that? It's a downward movement of the knee. The trail foot's on the ground. It can roll. I want it on the ground, but I still want pelvis rotation. I still want pelvis rotation. People too often do this. They think, well, if the foot's on the ground, you don't turn. Well, now you run into a problem because if you don't turn this, you can't turn this. I want that foot on the ground, that foot knee flexed, and I want rotation. Matter of fact, rotate the pelvis as much as you can. Rotate as much as you can. You're going to get 40, 35, 40, even 50 degrees of pelvis rotation, but it creates the limit. Now, the limits are important because I want this, I don't want you to ever think, I shouldn't have to think about rotation. No, you shouldn't. Knee flex, foot down, rotate as much as you want. That's all you gotta do, just rotate. Just keep these parameters in place. Now, a minute ago I talked about bend. So this side bend limits upper body turn, right? So now I have a limit and then a limit, and guess what? The only thing left is the release of the club, which, because of my upper body limit, is the rotation, extension of the arms, which we talked about a minute ago. So this limit, that limit creates impact consistency. And if you're missing one of those elements, for example, if the foot lifts or if the knee straightens, the knee straightens, increases range, body lifts, over rotation, limits are gone. It doesn't allow the consistency of impact. The other thing I want to talk about is forward bend, which I don't talk about a whole lot. Forward bend is the body this direction, right? This is the forward bend. The question I get a lot is, well, I keep standing up. Well, what I want you to do is keep your butt back as you turn. See that motion right there? So knee flexed, foot down, the butt is back as I turn. See, that allows me to turn. When you do this, anytime you see this motion of the body, where the body straightens, see, that's against the rotation. In other words, that's called extension of the body. When the body extends, it's not rotating. So if you're extending the body, you're not rotating it, and that's a problem. So what I want is I want you to keep your butt back as you turn. See that motion? You can practice this without a club. Butt back, body turned. That's what's going to allow this upper body to get to the exact same impact every single time. That's a question I get quite often is, well, I'm standing up a lot, and that you need to push your butt back. Your spine needs to stay back as you turn. I don't want to eliminate rotation, but I want to limit rotation, not eliminate it. All right, so next question I get a lot is really about big grips. Should I use big grips in my clubs? Big grips aren't an answer to the single plane swing, and I'm not against them. You know, people say, well, are you against them? Because people say, well, grip it in the palm of your hand. And I have an entire video on this on the YouTube channel about grip, but I want to kind of go through this again. It's again, and I'm going to go back to my reference to the tilt. I'm going to show you how the shaft lines up with the single plane without having to have it in the palm. Matter of fact, I'm going to grab a stick. See this? I got the shaft in my hand. This little skinny, teeny little shaft in my hand, I can get it in a perfect single plane. But I can't do it. I can't do it unless I tilt my body. So you can see that I am lining this club up perfectly into a single plane. It lines up with my lead arm, and it lines up with my trail arm, and all I am is I'm holding the shaft. But how am I doing that? Well, it's because of the rotation and tilt, rotation of the hand and tilt of the body that allows for this. And watch, this is a perfectly straight line, non-rotational single plane movement because of my tilt. I'll do it this way. Perfect motion of a single plane. Now, the big grip isn't doing that. The big grip isn't creating a single plane. Now, if I bring the grip into my hand, the bigger the grip, the easier it is, because now it's still in the same exact alignment. See the shaft alignment with my lead arm, shaft alignment with the trail arm. It has to do with the axis of the shaft. Now, it feels better here with a bigger grip because it fills up my hand, but you got to be careful, because if the grip gets too big, guess what? This hand starts getting over here. And now the handle's so big that it no longer lines up with the lead arm. That's what I see happen with people with too big a grip. If you get this hand, if this grip gets too big in this hand, here's what you'll end up doing. You'll end up rotating this hand on top, which is worse, makes the club face close, or this hand will go under the club, and now you have to rotate it to square. I see that a lot. So, properly fit grip's important to get the proper single plane alignment, but my point to this is the big grip is not the answer. It can be helpful, but you got to get the right size grip, and you have to make sure it's about the single plane position of your body. I can swing any club correctly on single plane. Doesn't matter how big the grip is. But you give me too big a grip, I start having more and more problems when the grip gets too big because this hand gets to where I have to rotate it. So just be careful on the big grip issue. It's not the answer. It can help, but it's not the answer to the single plane. Let's talk about one more thing about speed. Now, this is interesting because I used to get the question of the single plane swing can't produce as much speed as a conventional golf swing. Well, you've seen Bryson DeChambeau, who's very single plane set up and produce more speed than almost anybody on the PGA Tour. So let's not talk about Bryson for a second. Let's just talk about speed in general. Speed is one of those things where, yes, we all want speed, but here, let me ask you this. I play with guys. Some guys hit it farther than I do, and some guys don't hit it as far as I do. I'm pretty average when it comes to swing speed. But I beat a lot of guys that hit it farther than me consistently. And the reason is because I am more interested in consistency of my patterning of my shots than I am about an occasional 300-yard drive. Now, I'm probably like that because I play a very difficult golf course and positioning is very important. Distance can be important, but it's not near as important as positioning. But I want to ask you a question as you go into this. I'm not against you trying to produce speed. I'm against you losing consistency in the pursuit of speed. In other words, if all you care about is hitting at 320 or 300 yards, but you don't care about consistency, see, I think that's a mistake. And I think you have to focus on consistency first, patterning first, and then add speed as you get better. In other words, if you have a great golf swing and your mechanics are good and you're hitting it really straight and you're solid and you're making contact, great. Let's work on speeding it up a little bit and getting you some swing speed. But if you don't have the consistency yet, I think you need to forget about speed and develop consistency. Because I know for a fact that your numbers and stats and scoring will go down when your consistency improves, but just that occasional 300-yard drive isn't going to help your score that much. Maybe one shot around, where consistency will help you 8 or 10 shots around. So once again, I don't want to get too much off on all this speed stuff. We know the single plane swing can produce plenty of speed, but I'm a consistency guy. I want to develop, I want you to play golf like Matsuyama did when he won the Masters, because if you watch the third round of the Masters, he was a machine ball striking, consistency. He's not super long, but man, he was on fire, and that course requires that precision ball striking, and he sure had that the third round and even the last day. So just work on your consistency, add speed when you get there. That's kind of my recommendation to that. Now, let's talk about one more thing. And I want to talk about just the importance of positions. A lot of the questions I get in the single plane swing, they're result related. One guy asked me recently, he said, Todd, why don't you grab a TrackMan out there and just use a TrackMan, and when you hit a shot, you can look at the TrackMan and your numbers and see. And he also asked the question, he goes, how, if you don't have a TrackMan with you, do you self-correct? Like if you hook one, how do you self-correct? Let's talk about this. This is a little bit of a philosophy for me. I don't self-correct. I don't do it. And when I hit one left or I hit one right, I don't self-correct. And here's why. I never see anybody get better from self-correction. Think about that for a minute. Do you know anybody that gets better at golf from playing the game of miss one left, aim right, hit one right, aim left, and self-correction? No, I've never seen anybody improve. Matter of fact, I've seen people get so confused and frustrated that they don't know how to even where to go from there. Because what if you hit one left and then you aim to the right and then it goes right? Or what if you make the wrong choice? What if you hit it left because you had a side heel lie? And you think, I came over it. I see it happen all the time, whereas a guy hits one left, he goes, I came over it. I'm like, no, you didn't. Club face was closed, right? So I don't self-correct. And let me tell you what I do. I work on the model. I work on the fundamental principles of the swing, because all the answers to every single shot you hit are found in the model. For example, if I hit one left, the club face is probably closed. It's in the model. I hit one right, club face is probably open. Maybe or maybe not. But if I go to the range and I take out a camera, I can immediately find out, is the club face in the correct spot? Is my alignment good? Is my path good? It's all right there in the model. So what I do is I don't try to correct based on ball flight. I simply work on proper ball position, proper alignment, proper swing mechanics, and I learn to hit the ball perfectly. And once I've learned to do that, which I hit it pretty well almost every single day I play now, every bad shot is somewhere in ball position, alignment, it's in there. That's all I got to do. I don't have to worry about left, right, hook, fade, high, low. It's all right there in the fundamentals. So what it really clarifies for me, and it should clarify for you, is you don't have to work on all these different things. You work on one basic principle model, and that's all you work on. Now, a different story, when you're on the range, you need to figure out how to work on your golf swing, right? And that's what we have the Single Plane Academy and our coaching program for. But once you master the basic principles of the swing, you should be hitting it straight, no problem, and you shouldn't be self-correcting. You're on the golf course, let's say. Final conversation here. You're on the golf course and you hit a bad shot, right? And that bad shot goes to the right. What do you do on the next shot? You know what I do? I just do my normal setup correctly, aim the ball where I want it to go, and I make a good swing. And then let's say that one goes to the left. What do I do in the next shot? I just pick my shot, aim correctly, hit my next shot. You know why? Because the answer is in proper mechanics. It's going to come back with proper mechanics. But what I don't want to do is, oh, the last one went left, let's aim this one a little more to the right. I don't want to do that. Because then you get in this game, this guessing game of one right, one left. By the end of the round, you're confused. Pick your target, hit your shot, and keep working on what's absolutely perfectly correct when you play. And your rhythm comes back. That's the other thing that happens to me. If I start guessing on the golf course, I lose my rhythm. So you need to get back in your rhythm, back in your proper setup, back in your proper pre-shot routine, and keep aiming at the target. The model is the answer. That's why we have the single plane swing. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget, click the bell icon, give me a thumbs up, and share this video with your friends because we all want people swinging better on a single plane.